Welcome to Thinking Out Loud, conversations for the igniteHER collective. I'm Gabrielle, and around here we don't chase motivation, we build ignition. This is for the women who've done everything right, the business, the family, the goals, but still feel like something's missing. In this space, we talk about what comes after success, the moments where your fire starts to flicker, and the identity work that reignites it. Because you don't need more pep talks or productivity hacks, you need safety, rhythm, and belonging that actually lasts. So take a breath, settle in, and let's think out loud together. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Thinking Out Loud, conversations for the igniteHER collective. I'm Gabrielle, founder, coach, business owner, mum of three and wife, just to name a few. And to be honest, this podcast has been really sitting in my heart for years. It first started the day that I finally realised that not everybody thinks the way that I do. My brain is constantly running about 50 tabs at once, always sort of connecting the dots, creating meaning out of various moments, whether in business or family. And for a long time, I tried to sort of quiet that part of me to be more polished, more focused, more formal, more normal, whatever that means. But what I've come to learn through starting my own business, through motherhood, through the grief of losing my father, there was a divorce in there as well, and serious burnout, is those messy moments and thoughts, they're not the problem. They're actually the portal. So this show was born from those reflections that used to live in my head that have slowly made their way into my little voice note app on my phone, those small moments that really shifted everything for me. So Thinking Out Loud is me sharing those thoughts in real time with you as a woman who's done the things, built the things, ticked all the boxes that society has expected, and then wondered, now what? Is this all there is? So whether you're listening in the car, on a walk, or hiding in the pantry with a cold cup of coffee, welcome. You're in the right place. Okay, let's get into the first episode. So today I want to talk about something that for a really long time looked like empowerment to me, but it was actually more self-abandonment. And it started with one phrase that I used to say all the time. I'm flexible. I'm easy. Whatever works. That used to sound like strength to me. But what I eventually realized, and it wasn't straight away, it's been some years, was that it was actually code for I'll bend myself to fit what's not working. And sometimes the term flexible work isn't flexible at all. So where it all started, before I started my business, I was working for a large commercial developer. And after 12 months on maternity leave, after my first child, I was negotiating my return to work details and was offered 3 days from home and 2 in the office. And now at first that sounded really empowering. I thought the word flexible felt like progress, right? Like the world was finally making room for women like me to be able to have their career and also be a present parent. But here's the truth. When I had further discussions and looked at the detail on those working from home days, I couldn't actually be the primary carer for my child. So it wasn't really flexibility. It was more conditional permission. So it was that structure that made me choose between being the kind of mum that I wanted to be for my child and the kind of professional that I felt like that I'd worked so hard to become. And that's when it really hit me, is that this isn't empowerment. It's just endurance. I wasn't being strong. I was just being stretched and kind of punished for being a woman who wanted to be a mother. So because flexibility without alignment, I feel now, is just tolerance in disguise. We're just tolerating. So I said no. I said no to the offer. And when I said no, I realized something really massive in that moment, that saying no, it's not quitting or giving up all that I've worked for, it's re-regulating. So the second that I let that offer die, something else came alive. I didn't lose the momentum. I actually built that internal integrity system. I stopped chasing the alignment and started actually installing it within me. I chose myself. I chose my family. Also, I thought at the time, and started my own business. from scratch. No corporate safety net. I had a 12-month-old baby at home. I'd moved from commercial construction into the disability sector, which is one of the most regulated sectors in Australia. There was complex wage awards, the provider registration process, compliance audits, rosters, duty of care. And let's just say the stakeholder management was the polar opposite to communications on a construction site. So I definitely didn't pick the easy path. And starting a new business, it definitely wasn't glamorous. There was no, sleep when your baby is sleeping. It was knee deep in policy and process, learning a whole new industry and language. It was spreadsheets and then fitting in the cuddles, but it was mine and it fit the life that I had at the time. Because I realized that women, we don't need more strategies, right? We need systems that actually work with our own biology, not against it. I used to think that flexibility made me strong, like I said before, but now the standards that I instill, they're the ones that make me steady. The world certainly doesn't need more flexible women. That's a whole other podcast episode on its own, but it needs more anchored ones, the ones who say, I'm actually not available for burnout as a badge of honor anymore. And for someone who found it really hard just to sit still and do nothing, that was a big shift for me. Just ask my husband. Every spare minute, I'm creating a project for us to do. We've been renovating our house for about the last 10 years. So there's always something to do and always a project to do on the weekends. But I digress. So what I've started to realize is that I don't need to be everything to everyone to feel worthy. I don't need to say yes to everything for fear of missing out or people pleasing. I've always been someone who needed to have that external validation. And over the years through doing the work, I've now shifted to an internal knowing that I can be both that fire and the soil, right? I can have the drive and knowing, but be grounded in actually who I am and not needing that external validation. So that's the standards that I live by now. And it's taken time. When you lead from those standards instead of being flexible, everything that's meant for you actually calibrates faster because your boundaries become the broadcast that you're sending out to the universe. So if you've been telling yourself, it's fine, I'll just adjust, I want you to really take the time and ask yourself one question. Is this adjustment building my peace or is it breaking it? Because every yes that costs you any type of alignment is a no to the version of you that you're actually trying to become. And ultimately, if you are stuck or blocked with anything in your life at the moment, it's about that identity upgrade, the next version of yourself you need to become in order to achieve those goals and get through those blocks, whether it's in life or business. So this week, maybe your standard is to stop performing flexibility, is to stand in what actually fits you, not to flatter the algorithm or the market or your mentor's advice. So in the words of Oprah, I love that book. One thing I know for sure is the more flexible you become in fitting in with everybody else's ideas or set of expectations, that the further away from your authentic self you become. So say no, re-regulate and rebuild from your internal compass. That's what we do here. We stop chasing the motivation and start installing identity. This was Ignite Her Ritual number 1 in disguise, choosing standards over flexibility. So, thanks for thinking out loud with me. I'll see you next week. And until then, remember, you don't need to rise harder. You just need to rise anchored. You've been listening to Thinking Out Loud for the Ignite Her Collective. If today's episode moved you, share it with a woman who's ready to reignite. Subscribe for next week's reflection and remember, it's not about doing more, it's about doing it anchored.